Welcome to 7th week. We have completed 6th week. What does it mean? That we are halfway through. So it is a good point where we stop for a moment and discuss what we have covered so far. So we started with an introduction to this course. We got into ad hoc way of talking about the demand side, and then we moved to the supply side. We started with again the ad hoc technique, but from there we branched out to something concrete. We went into technology, we went into cost, we went into kind of a profit also, and then we also figured out the perfectly competitive market. And from here we came back to the demand side formally to talk about consumers. And once we figured out the supply side as well as consumers, we talked about market, equilibrium, and then we talked about different intervention that government can do in the market intervention. And before that I missed a part here, so let's say this is 8th. 7th we also talked about elasticity, that is price responsiveness primarily, but we also talked about ad responsiveness, income responsiveness, and we used elasticity on the both side. And now we are we should move forward and we should talk about another market environment, that is monopoly. But before we do that, I also want to take little bit of time and talk about the demand estimation. Why do I want to talk about demand estimation? Because as manager, if you want to price your product, as we have seen, the demand side story is very, very important. Supply side, you would know, as a supplier you would understand what are your costs and all, but demand side you need to understand so that you price your product in a better way. So this week we are going to begin with our demand estimation. We can say that we can give it a different name, like we can say method of estimating price responses or estimating demand side, but let us understand what the problem is. One can, if one is starting thinking about this demand curve, how can you get? You can say, oh, I have access to different prices, let us say P1, and I can observe how many quantity has been bought in and sold in the market, P2, Q2, P3, Q3, and so on. Let us say, so now I can plot, we can have here P and here we have Q, and let us say one point is here, one point is here, and one point is here, and you say that roughly it looks like this is the way demand curve is. But there are practical problems in this approach. First of all, by now you should know that what you observe in market is not just any P1, Q1, but you observe Q star and corresponding P star, or we can say P star and corresponding Q star. So let us say this is for this 2023, this is for Jan 2023, and this is for Feb 2023, for example. And let us say that you have the point like them here. Let us say this is your, it so happens that this is your Q2, P2, this is your Q1, P1, and this is your Q3, P3. It's very much possible that this is Q2 we are talking about is for Jan 2023. It's very much possible that in Jan 2023 your supply curve is something like this and your demand curve is something like this. And in this 2023, your curves look something like, this is your supply curve and your demand curve is, let us say, this, for example. And then in Feb 2023, it looks like this is your demand curve and this is your supply curve. So, if you use this red line as the demand curve, let us say that if you are talking about variation here, so of course, if price decrease is this much, but if you are using the red curve, you would expect that change in quantity demanded is only this much, but in practice, the change in quantity demanded is much larger, this much. So, what is happening? In Jan 2023, your demand is way more elastic, but the red curve is much less elastic. In this 2023, it so happens that demand curve overlaps this 2020, the red curve. And in Feb 2023, if you take the red curve, you will think demand is much more elastic than it really is. So, you get into trouble if you use this technique. Although I must say there is a special case that this would be correct if your supply, let's say, let me draw it here. It's very much possible that you have these 3 points here and the variation of supply curve is simply, demand curve can be like this and variation of supply curve can be like this. But this is a special case. We would be very lucky to get this. We have situation like this. So, how to figure out, why do I say here it's right? We are saying, of course, all the equilibrium point is going to be on the demand curve. Here we are saying because of season and things from December to January to February, demand is not changing, it is remaining same, but because of changes on the supply side, we get 3 different supply curve and therefore it can give us good estimate of the demand curve. But that's rare. Typically we get variation in the demand because of seasonality, variation in demand because of many external factors. So, we have to be wary of that. So, how to go about estimating price response, or in other word, estimating demand function? And here I have written some of the techniques. I must say right at the beginning I have given you reference. This is a book, Principle of Pricing by Vohra and Krishnamurti. Vohra is an economist and I believe, I may be wrong, that Krishnamurti is a professor of marketing. They have written this book together. And another book that I am using is Managerial Economics for this chapter, but largely material has been taken from Vohra and Krishnamurti. So, I urge you that if you want to get into details, you look at the 3rd chapter of Vohra and Krishnamurti. So, I am going to talk about these 9 different techniques. All these techniques are kind of approximation. They try to take advantage of certain situation. They have some plus points, they have some negative point. Just to give you brief idea, that managerial judgment is about, what cumulative judgment that manager can come up with and they say this is the demand curve. Analogous product could be like, that if Apple is launching now iPhone 16, it can use iPhone 15 pricing and quantity bought and sold to understand what would be the demand for iPhone 16. Benchmarking could be that rather than just talking about your own product, you can also consider rival product. So, Apple can also look at the prices quoted by Samsung, OnePlus and many other companies. Focus group is very good qualitative research technique which is used in marketing. So, we will talk about focus group also. Then this is purchase intention survey, is about conducting surveys and getting responses from potential customers and coming up with demand curve based on that. Experimentation, we will see that in certain cases managers can experiment in real field or in the simulated environment. They can do experiment to come up with the demand curve. Then we will talk about two statistical technique, one very popular in marketing and psychology, that is conjoint analysis, and second that is popular in economics, that is regression analysis of historical data, and at last we will talk about economic value to customer technique. So these are the techniques that we are going to discuss in this video. Let us take them one by one. So the first technique is managerial judgment. Managerial judgment is basically a way to use a accumulated knowledge of salesperson, product engineers and product managers. Basically all these managers can be given a kind of product book that contains information of product sales and prices, that's current for existing product, and competitive goods sales and prices. All these informations are given to them, and then they are asked that what would happen to demand, the quantity demanded, if price goes up by X% or if price goes below X%, and this X can be 2 or 4 or 5, something like that. So they are trying to, they have a base point, and from there they are asked how much would be the change in quantity demanded if price goes up by 2%, 4% or 5%. Okay, and then they are also, when they are asked, they have to give a response, and they also have to tell about something what they call it source of volume. What is source of volume? Basically it is composition of buyers. So let us say price is coming down by X%, so there would be new buyers. So they have to say what percentage of new buyers are existing buyer of the same product. And how much percentage are buying the rivals or competitive product earlier and now they have shifted to this particular product, and what percentage of buyers are completely new buyers. So they are also asked this source of volume or composition of customer, and they also have to give justification that why they think this is the right. And then all this data gets collated and anonymized, and it's given to all manager participating in this discussion, and they are asked, would you like to revise your data or not? And once they revise, again it is collated and given to everyone. So what happens over the collation and with discussion, they reach to a level, upper bar or lower bar of the quantity changes that they expect with a particular price change, and that's what managerial judgment is all about. Basically it is Delphi technique, where Delphi is a famous temple, was a famous temple in Greece, and there were forecaster, their information was fed to one another and it got collated, and then they revised the forecasting. And so this is what managerial judgment is. It's collation of forecasting done by different managers. So that's one technique to come up with price response to quantity demanded. Next is analogous product. As I already told you that it is very useful that if a company has over the period a series of product, we can say it is nth generation product, in the sense that the company has come up with this product nth time. Best example would be Apple iPhone. Now iPhone 15 is in the market, so roughly there were 15 generations in the past. So it gives us a good idea for managers to compare the pricing of the upcoming product based on the pricing and quantity sold for earlier generation product. So it works best for incremental innovation, and previous, as I told you, the previous generation model works as a reference point. But the problem with this is that it may not work well for the new product. So that's what you should keep in mind. Now let us come to what we call benchmarking. Benchmarking is very similar to analogous product, but the difference here is that instead of using the product from the same company or same kind of product, here the analogous product from different companies are used. Like for Apple iPhone 16 pricing, let's say Apple iPhone 16 pricing, they may use Samsung Galaxy 24's pricing. So here comparison is done with competitive product. It again does not work well for new products for which you do not have any reference product available in the market, but analogous product and benchmarking, they are very similar to one another. Now let us move to focus group. That's also very important technique, and it is very widely used for quantitative market research to obtain reaction from target markets for various different kind of question. These question could be such that how do you rate the product and what do you think about customer service evaluation, and so it can also be used for to obtain the demand curve. Of course, here framing is very important, the way you ask question, and typically what happens, 8 to 10 people are gathered and then there is a moderator that leads the discussion to direct what they are discussing, and based on that they talk about, they come with a cumulative wisdom. Like instead of doing, in one sense it's very similar to managerial judgment, but managerial judgment you are using the company's managers, production engineers and so on, but here you are using some random people as focus group. Of course, you tend to choose random people from the target customer group, and they reach to a conclusion that what should be the price of the new product, or how the price, what would be the quantity response or demand response of price variation. It has certain disadvantage. One, it has a very small sample size. Why I say small sample size? You tend to use 8-10 people, you can say why not increase the number. The problem is that it tends to be very expensive. You need to pay these focus group participants and it's very difficult to get them. Third, it's very much possible that 1 and 2 people in this focus group are so vocal that they completely change the direction of discussion. Also, it is possible that that the focus group focuses on wrong attributes. Another problem is that typically focus group has tendency to please the moderator. And have I said that it's very important to have a very skilled moderator, because skilled moderator has to balance the discussion, get the proper response from people participating in the focus group. Now let us look at survey, more specifically purchase intention survey. What is this survey? This survey is to obtain the likelihood of purchase at a specific prices. The most important question is, can we ask potential customer that how much are you willing to pay, and will they give the right information? Perhaps not. There are two issues. One, that they may not know actually that how much they are willing to pay. Willingness to pay may not be known. Second, even if it is known, they may not like to share it with you. Not share with you. That's the problem. So one option is that to describe, but if you have to conduct, there is no way out. One option is to go for, you describe the product in very much detail, tell about all the attributes and give them different option that how much they are willing to pay, and to pick one of these options. But this also sometimes does not work, because potential customer, they tend to overstate. So another way could be just ask them to give a number that how much maximum they are willing to pay for this particular item. Another technique would be that rather than asking them how much they are willing to pay, you describe the product as well as potential price and then ask them to rate on 5-point scale. 5 certain to buy, 4 likely to buy, and so on, and 1 certainly not buy. And then surveyor can take a weighted average. But again, there are lot of issues with conducting these purchase intention survey, but sometime you don't have any way out and you like to conduct these surveys to get some idea about the demand curve. And of course, so when you are doing here, you are telling the price that with these attributes this much is the price. You can collate that this much of price, let's say P1, these many people have said yes, at P2 these many people have said yes, and you can generate the demand schedule, the complete demand schedule. Theoretically speaking, you can generate it, but you should be careful about it. Because why you should be careful about it? Because it is mired with so many problems that potential customer, they tend to overstate and they don't give the right information. Let us move to the next technique, that is experimentation, to conduct experiments. Now there are two kind of experiment we can talk about. One is field experiment and second is simulation. In field experiment, the manager can vary the price of the same item in different cities and see how the demand is getting affected by it, and it can help him draw the demand curve. But it can turn out to be very costly, because if it is, in some cities it has been priced too low, there will be very much demand, high demand and quantity demanded, and company will lose money, and if it has been priced on the higher side, they would lose customers. So one has to be very part of it. But field experiment can be done very easily in, let us say, supermarket kind of setting, or we have in India Big Basket or Blinkit. In these setting, these field experiment can be done on day-to-day basis with help of software. On Big Basket and Blinkit, they can vary the price little bit and say the customer response, consumer response, and that will help them draw the demand function. Another technique can be the simulation. You can simulate a supermarket kind of a situation where these product can be theoretically kept, and then you give potential customer some artificial money and they are told to buy different items from the supermarket. You can keep track of which item they are buying, and with different, of course, when you are keeping the item, you will vary the attribute, you will vary the features, and you will vary the prices, and you will see the response. So simulation can also help you give the demand curve. So these are some basic ways. Now let us move in the territory of regression analysis. So what is regression analysis? One can have that quantity demanded can be written as a function of, let us say, beta 1 P1, let us say Q1, beta 2 P2, beta 3 I, beta 4 A, and this is epsilon, the error term. If you have enough data for this particular item, historical data, even from different cities and all, and you can have a city effect also, let us say gamma city, and so you can combine all these and you can run a regression and you can evaluate how much is going to be beta 1, how much is going to be beta 2, how much is going to be beta 3, how much is going to be beta 4, and so on. And there are a statistical technique in which in this course we are not going to deal with it, but I believe that in your course on statistics you must have learned about regression analysis. So once you get this beta 1, you are getting the demand, you are getting some idea about the demand function. So this is the regression analysis using historical data. Now let us talk about conjoint analysis. Conjoint analysis is a popular method for product and pricing research. The origin of conjoint analysis is in mathematical psychology. Their attempt is to uncover consumers' preference, and this technique is particularly useful for selecting different features of a product at the design state. What are the different features that company should put vis-a-vis how much it will bring changes in the price. It's also important in figuring out price sensitivity. Right now we are talking about this particular features, and it is also useful for forecasting its volume and market share. What is this technique? This technique is basically, it involves unbundling a product in attributes. Let us say theoretically there is a particular phone which has only 4 features. Let us say color, either it is blue or green. Let us say the hard drive, I am just saying for simplicity we are just having 2 and 2, either 64 GB or 128 GB. RAM, 8 GB RAM or let us say 16 GB RAM, and then let us say price, either 20,000 rupees or 30,000 rupees. So these are the 4 attributes. So we can have totally 2 multiplied by 2 multiplied by 2 multiplied by 2, and that is 16 different combination. Now what can be done with different combination? Let us say one combination can be blue phone with 16 GB RAM, 64 GB hard drive with price 30,000, and consumer can be asked to compare it with a green phone with, let us say, 64 GB hard drive, 8 GB RAM and 20,000 price. And so there are 16 different combination, and at a time 2 or 3 or 4 can be shown to a potential customer, and they are asked to pick which one they would like to buy given this particular combination. And then they generate the data, and then we go back to the regression analysis, but rather than using the historical data, here the conjoint analysis will use the data that this survey would generate, and based on that they would figure out what is the price sensitivity for quantity demanded for a particular kind of a product. Again, I am not getting into the details of all these techniques. You have to take a course in marketing or perhaps in marketing and sales to understand these things in detail. My aim here is just to give you, familiarize you with these basic ideas. I can also tell you that my knowledge in these areas would always be is bit rusty also, because I don't use it on day-to-day basis, but nevertheless these are the practical things that one should know. The last technique is economic value of customer. This technique says that a customer will buy a product only if utility from, let us say, this product A is greater than utility from some other product B. In true sense, basically you have A, B, C, D, E, all these available, and we are thinking of that how much customer is willing to pay for A. You have to pick the best among these alternatives and think about the comparison. So utility from A, as we have discussed in the past, that it depends on gain minus cost from A should be greater than or equal to gain minus cost from B. Or we can say this cost is what? We are talking about basically price. So cost is basically price that this company can come up with, and this is the price of B. And so we have to figure out price of A, how much should be the price of A. So price of A should be less than, we can say, price of gain from A minus gain from B plus price of product B. And this is what we can say, this is differential gain. differential gain or differential how much better product A is in comparison to product B, and plus price of B. So, what it says, the price of the new item of this new item should be less than the price of B corrected for the differential gain that product A is making vis-a-vis product B. Now, of course, this gives you an upper limit. It does not say that price, let me say here, the price should be equal to this. It does not say. It says it should be less than or equal to. There are many other factors that comes into play that decide that how much should be the actual price. The idea of fairness, or how new the product is, how sensitive, whether the substitutes are available or not. So, all these factors play a role into deciding how the price of good A should be decided. I should also say that it is also very important to pick the reference product very carefully, because that would decide the upper limit on the price. Similarly, the price of B should also be, in the real market, in theory we can say this, the price P is PB. But in reality, price can be very different. Let us say that someone is launching in India the internet based telephony. Should we take the price of a call using mobile phone, or should we take a price of a WhatsApp call, which is zero in true sense, or price of a Skype call? So, it is very, I would say that it is good idea to take the price zero if internet based telephony is thinking about how much should be its product price. So, one has to be very careful about it. Again, I do not get into the details of all these techniques, but all these techniques give you certain idea, some idea that how to figure out the demand schedule, or how to figure out the sensitivity to price on quantity demanded. And so, with that, in next video we will move to a new market environment, that is monopoly. See you in the next video.